All right, well, welcome everyone. What I'm going to do today is try to help you to become a better president. And if you happen to be a vice president or are just itching for the role of becoming president, I'm hoping this will help you. So we're going to get started very easily here. So being a president, the roles and responsibilities, and most of this you can find on ICANN. Very easy to do, ican.ca. You can get that through the national website, kincanada.ca. So the biggest thing is with your roles and responsibilities is make sure you organize your general and executive meetings. Not all clubs have executive meetings. It really depends on the club. Your general meeting is, of course, just like everything else, your normal meetings, your executive meetings is where the executive will actually take the time and discuss and decide before it actually gets to the general meeting. It might actually also, fly buggered me, it might actually also be where new projects and then new ideas will come up. So the biggest thing is you want to oversee your committees as well. And committees should not be kept from the president. They should be informed, and the committee should give you regular updates, but that does not mean that you have the right to interfere in that committee. They've been assigned, they've been voted to do that job, and you want to make sure that they're keeping you in the loop, advising you if there's any problems, and then maybe a solution that can come up at a general meeting if there is any issues, but you should definitely know what is going on in overseeing your committees. Your secretary is your right hand. It cannot stress that enough. They will help you keep you on the straight and narrow, and it's always a good idea in this digital age right now is to get your minutes out in ahead of time. And the other thing is it's a good idea also to keep your minutes in the cloud if at all possible, instead of having them on a memory stick or and computers break all the time. You put them on the hard drive, get them in the cloud, put them in Dropbox or anything that's close to that, Microsoft Teams, anything, just to get it that they don't get lost. You could be asked technically by any member of the community or a municipality for your minutes at any time. If you're voting on something, you want to make sure that that is covered, that you can be able to go back and find those. Here's the other thing is your treasurer. You got to work closely with him, and you never, ever sign the checks ahead of time. Most clubs require 2 signatures. And if that's the case, and that should be the case, you never want to have one person signing off on a check at any time. So if that's already in your policy or in your house rules, that it doesn't state that, you may want to change that. You are responsible for what the finances happen in your club as well as the treasurer. So you want to make sure, I cannot stress enough, 2 checks on every signature. Do not pre-print. National zone, district, and requirements in filling out the paperwork. I'm going to get into this a little bit later. There are many requirements to file. We'll get onto that, and we'll just move on. Attend zone and district meetings when required. There's more than just you in your club. It's up to you as your president to keep your club in the loop, and you can help do that by attending conventions and your conferences. You can learn at these conferences. You can also find new ideas for fundraising, and you can also share resources. When I sit there and say that, say for instance, like I'll use Port Dover for example. They've got a beer trailer. Perfect. You might need that for an event, possibly. Hey, give them a call. I know Brenda, her club has got a catering trailer. I'm not sitting there saying that they'll loan it to you, but they'll be like, hey, we will help you, or, you know, we'll send somebody along and we can help you with that or whatever. So the other thing is fellowship and participation in the club. At the zone and district national levels, the biggest mistake, the fellowship is the key, and we will go into this again once a little bit later. And mentor the vice president, train your replacement. The biggest mistake is a president holding the job. When I'm sitting there saying hold the job, I'm talking about the gavel. I'm talking about not teaching them anything. They do have roles and responsibilities. Show them the ropes. Take time well in advance so that the vice president can ask for help. You know, like I said, assign them tasks, ask them for help. If there's a deadline approaching, get them to do it ahead of the deadline. Say, for instance, a national deadline or a district deadline. Get them to do it earlier, and then that way, if you know, as the deadline approaches, they're like, "Oh, I don't know how to do this." No problem. We will. You got time to work with them or find somebody who can. So, what can help a president to be better? Well, you can lead by example. Being a president also means you are a leader. A leader does not dictate, they encourage, they invest in the club, they impact the club to be better. Choose the right people for the right jobs and then ask them. So just like any job, you choose who will be the best at what they can do. So when a new member joins your club, you know, you don't want to make them president right away. That's not a good thing. You may want to start them off on a committee. I'll use this for an example. Like I did my very first job that I got hosted on or in charge of was zone conference. And that was back in 2006, I believe. So when I did that, no, 2006, whatever, 2016, sorry, me bad. I got voted to do that and to host it. And the greatest thing is that literally it was an easy task. It was one of the easier ones you could probably do. Of course, you have directions. You know, it's literally you're planning a party. And I always seem to be pretty good at that. So they signed me right up for that. That was a great learning curve. And you know what, when I was done that, I was just like, yes, I was stuck. I would love, that's what literally just did the hook, line, and sinker. I was in. I did this job. I had direction. I had really, really good mentors to help me because they've done it before, and they kept me on the straight and narrow. It was awesome. The other thing is as a club president, you can't do it all. You've got your district executive. You can delegate. You know, when we sit there and say you want to be a diplomat, it says right on there, be a diplomat, not a dictator. It's just like, hey, you know what, Bob, you've got good skills in this. Would you be able to do this for me? Can you keep me on the loop for it? And, you know, we'll get this done together. Or, you know, if you can do most of the work, we'll double check it. You're going to wear yourself out as club president, especially if you are a very busy club. That is, being president is, like I said, you want to be a leader, and there's other stuff that you might have to worry about in your club as well. So that's just something to keep in mind. So prepare a yearly calendar of meetings, programs, events. So you can get this in the district president's planner, but don't worry, I'm definitely going to show you that later. Motivation is huge. It's key. Serving the community's greatest need by creating events, you know, promoting yourself. That's a big thing. You want a great way when your community is looking back at you and they see what you're doing, they're going to get behind you, and that's going to help you guys even further. You're going to get not only that new projects, but you are also going to get new members. And that's what we hopefully want. If you're not motivating yourself in your club, it's going to be a tough call. It's going to be a tough go for a while. So as a president, a leader, and you want to motivate. So here's the other thing is keep business professional and separate from the fellowship. Get your reports in, for instance, like your, get the reports in from your teams, from your committees, from your executive. Get them in ahead of time, even if they're written, instead of emailing it out. If they say that person's not tech savvy, that's okay. At least get it written out. Tell them to copy and paste it to you somehow in an email, or take a picture of it. It doesn't matter. Or copy it, tell them to bring it to them. If people are reading it at your meetings, that's really going to save them a lot of time, especially when it's in front of them. They're waiting for the other members to come in. And then it's just like, oh, guys, did you read that report? Okay, anything, questions on it? Great, move on. Because some of the stuff, like especially, I'm going to use the Sugar Bush, for example, it can get pretty lengthy. So we want to keep that, you want to keep your meetings quick and short. Qualifications, I'm not going to go into this too much. So ideally, a president shouldn't hold the position of president, or ideally, president, let me reverse that. A president should at least hold vice president at least once. And I'm not sitting there saying it has to be right beforehand, but if they've been on the committee and stuff like that, but or on the executive, that's fine. But you never, ever want to throw a new member into the position of president. Give them time to learn their club. Get them time to learn the members and the way you do things. Every club is different. If you go into London or the Lions, he may have been president 3 or 4 times, but he doesn't necessarily know how your club works. At a minimum, that person should also have club experience. And should you wish to further develop any strong or varied skills and settings, leadership and interpersonal skills, organizational skills, public speaking, written communication, and a basic knowledge of rules of order. So education and training you can get from your deputy governors, from CLS, Club Leadership Seminar, which is coming up this soon in September, conventions, and from KINU. That'll help your members and somebody that's new to your club explain their knowledge to help make the president's to make your role easier. All members should also be informed about your positions, about the position prior to the election. So if the secretary is coming up when your elections are coming up, make sure you have the duties there for secretary, risk management. They should be there ahead of time so people know what the roles and responsibilities are. A lot of the times people sit there and say, yeah, I'll do secretary, and they don't. And next thing you know, they don't really know what the whole job entails, or risk manager, and stuff can get missed. So we don't want that to happen. And how do we know, and how can we help you with that? Well, remember I sat there and said back in here, the qualification and kin, going back, knowledge of rules of order, public speaking, and leadership skills. So we're going to go right back to that screen again. And guess what? We've got this beautiful club president's planner that the members of VIBE put together. We changed a few things in it, and we literally tried to make that a little bit easier to read this time. So everything is here that you need to know for your district, for your club. Everything's in there, from national, when the deadlines are, everything's there. So what I've done here is I've just put on what the table of contents are, because you can download them right on the District 1, off District 1 KIN. This is the Bible for your year. Don't worry, it won't be signed by Donald Trump, but I'll tell you this. This is, you need this, and you should be making sure that you have got your, that you are there to watch, to go through this step by step, month by month, okay? There is also the KIN Canada Successful Club Manual. So this is a guideline how to improve your club from, all the way, anything from doing a health assessment to goal setting, help you make your agenda all the way down to your membership. It's a great resource. It's a great resource for you and your members to learn and understand. And the thing is a lot of KinU courses are actually based off of this manual. Not all of them, but some of them. So that's something to take a look at. If you want to log into your ikin.ca sometime in the near future, I would highly suggest, especially if you're vice president, president, there is so much in there that you can learn from. I'm going to stop. Is there any questions? Anybody want to put a hand up or anything like that? By all means, if you got questions, I forgot to sit there and say at the beginning, please ask, just go right ahead, put your hand up, and hopefully I'll see you.
The other option is to throw a question up in the chat because I am watching it for you.
Thank you, Karen. So you've probably heard this time and time again, but I'm not going to spend too much time on this at all. The important dates, November 15th, this has to be done. I cannot stress this enough. When you are put in, if you don't do this, you're put in not good standing. Or sorry, not good standing. And then afterwards, after a certain amount of time, without any contact, you are going to be suspended. And when you are suspended, you can't do anything. You can't use kin name. You cannot promote any events. You cannot advertise. You cannot host an event. You can't host some conference. You can't, you can't vote. So you want to make sure that you get this done. And this is in the president's planner. Another important deadline dates are, as they're also there, is March 31st is your second dues installment, and June 15th is your annual service reporting form. This is so easy to do. I cannot state how easy this is to do. The biggest thing is that you got to fill in your service hours and roughly around how much money that you have raised. The best way to do this is to elect a service director. It can be a volunteer position. So it can be a volunteer position by all means. So the biggest thing is, like, I've already been keeping track of my own personal hours, and I'm at 48 or something like that. That's not even including the district. That doesn't count. That's just my club since July 1st. So that gives me a rough idea of how much the count is. I've never even added it all up before. Never done it, except until this year. We just ballpark. So when you do this annual service reporting form, it also tells Canada how much money that we have raised from coast to coast and how many service hours you put in coast to coast. So why not put these out there? This is something to be proud of. I think I just off the top of the head, the last national convention I think I was at, it was like 26 or 40. I think it was like $26 million. I could very, very well be wrong on that. So, oh, please checks. I'll get into that in a couple minutes there, Wanda. Thanks for the asking. Now we'll get into the during your meetings. So the other thing is, you want to keep your meeting moving. There's nothing wrong. There's like, if you got some serious stuff, Derek, I'm going to answer that question coming up as well. That's actually good. So so you want to keep the meeting moving. Yes, of course. You don't want to sit there. Is it done yet? I'm getting sick of this. So it's boring, and they don't want to be, you've all been on boring meetings before. I know you have, and you're just like, oh my goodness, is this over yet? It's different if it's intriguing or come up with a new idea or somebody's got something really cool. That's when things change. Then there's some leeway, of course. Give executive reports if meeting separately. So at the beginning, I sat there and said, if your executive is meeting separately, which not all clubs do, but that's fine. If the nice thing is that it really cuts down on your regular general meeting. So it gives you more time for fellowship. Let the executive do what they're supposed to do. They have, that's what they've been elected for. They ran for the position. Let them make the big decisions. Bring it back to the club for approval. Approve it at the executive. Yes, let's do this. Bring it to the general membership, and they can vote on it. They say, yeah, like the idea, or they can share any concerns, vote on it quick, boom, move on. That way you're not tying them up all night, and there's more time for fellowship. The other thing is fine sessions. You want to keep the, like I said, keep the meeting moving. Fine sessions are a great way to get any member that's, will just sit there. You want to get them up off their feet, get them to stand up, propose a fine. When I was in Dorchester, you got nailed $1 if you didn't even propose a fine. So you got fined for 50 cents if you lost, or so you might as well get up and stand up and speak. So that's a great way, and that was written right in the house rules. You must speak, and you must propose a fine, not just respond to a fine. You must propose one. Everyone in your club has the right to voice their opinion. No one can sit there and say, Steve, sit down. You don't know what you're talking about. They have the right. Everyone has the right, and it's up to the president to make sure that everyone's voice is heard. Some people may not be, especially if it's a big decision, they may not feel comfortable putting up their hand and speaking right off the bat. So make sure that when you are doing big items, like big expenditures on, like say you're going to buy a trailer, and it's going to cost $8,000 to buy a trailer. That's a big deal. So make sure that you give everyone time. You might have to spend this over two meetings if that's the case. So then that way, at least that person who's not comfortable, if they don't feel, if they feel that they can't speak freely, to get up there and speak to the president privately and sit there and say, can you explain this to me? And this way you can clear up any issues. The other thing is you always want to make sure that members are respectful to each other at all times. And it's your responsibility as a club president to intervene when things get out of hand. You don't want to have this going on and you're just sitting there going like this when two people are sitting there yelling at each other or having an argument. I can tell you a quick story when I actually left a club because I literally got verbally attacked, and it was not nice. It was not nice at all. And I was, F-bombs were coming out just from that guy. I just sat there and took it, and I left. I never went back to that club. So, and the president just sat there. There was no repercussions from what he did. And you know what, it's tough. It's very tough. So, you want to, it's your job as president to make sure that does not happen. Any questions? So Kin protocol. All the clubs are different. Nobody does it exactly the same. Now, we've all done it. Canada, we've done it every day. We've done the Kin song, we've done Kin Grace, we've done toast, we did the Indigenous land recognition, right? So one click too far. So when you're doing that, all these things, what about a new member? So does a new member want to do the Kin song? They don't know. They only maybe know one person or maybe two. And all of a sudden we're going, here we are together once again. You know what? I don't know whether that'd be that person's cup of tea. I don't know. So the thing is, if you do them, that's fine, no problem. But just be aware how others feel. That's the biggest thing. Talk to your members about taking the time, whether the formalities are there, they're good to practice them. Absolutely. If you want to go to national convention, district convention, you need to know these. And that's okay. So maybe practice them a couple times a year, but just be respectful. It's just to keep your mind refreshed. And you know what? The kin song, the kin grace has changed. That's not the same. The indigenous land recognition, that's tough. It's very tough. I've tried to do it a couple times, and yeah, you bugger it up every single time. But you know what? I've actually talked to someone about that, and they sat there, an indigenous person, Dan and Mary Lou Smoke, come out to the Sugar Bush all the time. And I asked them about that, and they said, you know what? It's fine. Biggest thing is you're trying to make an attempt. Just do the best job you can. Cool. Yeah, that was pretty good of them to sit there. We get it. Like I said, practice it a couple times a year. And the other thing is when another club's coming, say for instance, say the Walkerton Cadets wanted to come down and visit the London Kinsmen. You should be using the kin song and not just the Kinsman song. They're a guest, but still be respectful. Do both if you are doing the kin song. And if you don't know it, this is a great education time to go do it. And kin grace should only be used during the dinner meetings, but it's okay to practice it once in a while, even though you're not having a dinner meeting. Most of the time you go, they'll have a sheet, especially at a gala. Like for instance, that's coming up on Saturday or Friday and Saturday, it'll probably be there. But you know what? If you're not sure about how it's doing, you happen to get asked, just all you have to sit there and start is here we are, and then away you go. There's your kin song, and everyone else will join in. And kin grace, just happy to meet, and everyone else will follow along. So, okay. So again, this should be decided by your club, when and where you want to do these. So what you need to learn as a president, rules of order. This help keeps things moving. Motion to adjourn, motion second, way you go, done. Try to do executive meetings, to do major business, budgets, planning future events. Keep control of the meeting, that's huge. People are getting out of control, they're taking too long, they're yammering. Boom, sit down, you're fined 25 cents for delay of meeting and move on. It all depends on, of course, what subjects you're talking about. Just keep that in mind, right? So, and again, delegate and know the difference in between responsibility and accountability. Now, who was it? That was Derek. This is the best way to explain it, and I'm going to get into some detail, not a whole lot. So accountability. I wish I don't have a pointer, but the duty to ensure a task is completed. The responsibility is the obligation to complete a task. So I'm just going to read this little blurb here, and hopefully it works for you. In casual conversation, we often use the words responsibility and accountability interchangeably. However, the difference is a hot topic in project management. So for many years, RACI charts had assigned names as responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed for each task and major project were super popular. But let's try this. Responsibility relates to completing a task, whereas accountability relates to the oversight and subsequent examination to its success, process, and other consequences. So I'm going to try to put it this way, and I found this analogy and I really liked it. While all employees of an organization are responsible for cybersecurity, you've probably seen examples where the accountable CEO are resigning after the information system gets hacked. Does that make sense? I hope it does. So the CEO or the person that is accountable, or the president is accountable for somebody else's responsibility. Karen and I are accountable for Frank's responsibility of being a treasurer. He looks after the books, but Karen and I are accountable for his responsibility to look after the books. I hope that kind of helps things out a little bit. Now, is there any questions on accountability and responsibility? Like, I know that there was, just put up your hand or just, and speak up or just speak up. Yeah, here you go, guys. This is the hardest thing that anyone has to deal with. Conflict resolution. People quit their jobs, associations, they quit volunteer positions because they don't want to deal with it, or nobody does anything about it. So the biggest thing is, don't let it fester. The longer it takes to deal with it, it's going to get worse. You know, it really depends on the person. Like, if they're best buddies and, you know, like, yeah, you know what, they might get over it. It all depends on what the conflict is. The longer it goes on, the worse it can get. And if you need help, ask your deputy governors. A lot of issues, you know, a lot of, I'm going to put in here with communication. A lot of issues, I don't know, maybe it's because I'm a guy. A lot of issues sometimes you talk about right away can solve the problem. And as long as the people are involved aren't too heated. It kind of brings me to the next point. You know, if it's really heated, you want to just don't like they got to calm down. They got to cool down. Having an individual who's, you know, super upset, and, you know, that person can, you know, if you don't deal with it, they're going to come back to your club and they're going to be more upset. They're not going to let it go. They're going to, you know, they can be toxic to your club. They're going to come up with new things to be new issues in your club when you're at a meeting, and it's just going to keep building and building and building. Next thing you know, you got a toxic club. So it's so hard to have that communication to deal with that. And, you know, it could come down to mediation, which is fine. There's people in the district that are trained to help you. You're a president, you know, as a president, you may not feel qualified to do this. Maybe there's somebody in your club that can do it, like who's been on a district membership or DMD, or at that time was DMD or club support director that's done with it. Like, I know Brenda has dealt with it before as club support director. And you know what? It's tough. It's very tough. Don't overstep. If you're not confident that you can solve this issue, or you don't have a plan in place, you want to make sure that you have somebody who's trained that can do that. So make sure you ask them for help. But the thing is you are still like in a meeting situation, you are still responsible as a president to make sure that no one is bullied or attacked, and not verbally or otherwise. We hope that otherwise never happens, but you've got to make sure that you are in control and that does not happen. So the district council is here to help if you happen to have an issue like this. We hope you don't, but you know what? It does happen. We have training there. We have other people that we can ask that have done it before. But this really does come down to communication and knowing when to ask for help. So we're getting almost to the end, and then we're going to have a nice little powwow here, and we're good. We're at 14 people are on, so we should hopefully have some really good conversation, I'm hoping here. So training tools to help you more that we've, you know, I came up for you. So there's so much information, right from recruitment to workshops to reporting. You name it, ICANN's probably got it. And if you still need help, reach out to your deputy governor, and which you can anytime, or contact National. I wouldn't suggest right now. They're a little busy for probably the next, you know, 4 or 5 days or 6 days. So I would probably refrain from calling national for a little bit. Kin U, conducting efficient meetings and voting in kin. I really highly suggest that if you are only been in kin for a few years, or you want to start running meetings more and you've never really done it, I really suggest you go to those efficient meetings and voting in kin. There's a lot more in kin U. And remember, I sat there and said from the successful club manual, that is a perfect place. That's where most of the kin U courses actually had come from. So what else did I have in here? Come to the club leadership seminar. It's in September. The call is coming out really soon. You should probably get it, I imagine the email, in the next day or two, Karen? Possibly. And
Yep, hoping to get it out this evening, but September 18th is the date you want to put in your calendar.
Time,
write that down.
do we have a time?
It should be about 9 a.m. I think we're starting at 9 a.m. or 9:30. Ballpark in there.
It'd be 9:30 at the earliest.
Okay.
Because people who have 2.5, 3 hours to drive, they shouldn't have to be on the road at 8 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the morning to come to a kin event for a day. We don't think that's fair.
So club leadership seminar, like I said, come to that. Fall leadership convention, zone conference, and your spring convention. These are all great training tools. CLS is a great training tool, so is FLC. Your zone conference, you may not have training tools, but you know what? You're there, you're getting the experience, and you are also, learning probably rules of order a little bit, maybe a little bit better if you're kind of still new at it. And know that you get to actually have a conversation with all your other fellow kin that's from your zone, and actually some of them outside your zone. And you can also talk about that whole sharing thing of your resources. And then you can also get into interclubs. That's the other thing. I'm sorry I didn't put that in there, and that's great too. And we're missing this. We really are. We're not going to see clubs like what we used to. It was nice there a little while ago. Delhi came down and visited London. It's great. We had a grand time. So it was fun. It was a lot of fun. All right. So this is if there's any other questions, we're almost at the end. So this is more just of a general conversation I'd like to have with everyone. And so if there's any questions about what I've done so far, please let me know. All right. So what I'm going to do is right here, opinions on what you should or should not be doing at a meeting. Well, I wrote this up and I thought, you know what, I'm going to change this. I want to see what you guys are experiencing at your meeting that you like or dislike. And also what works well during a meeting in your club. What do you find makes it either enjoyable, more entertaining? So, if anybody wants to chime in, go ahead, just be respectful, put your hand up, and when you're done, put your hand down, and we'll go from there. I'm going to stop sharing my screen at this time. Good, Kin Sean.
So just to touch base on back to formalities and things at club meetings. So St. Thomas Kinsman, we do the Kin song before every meeting, as well as O Canada. So if a new member came out and they didn't really like that, is the plan that we just drop that, or?
My thought on that would be, do what you feel is right. Do what your club feels is right. I'm not suggesting you have to change for one member. Talk about it with your club. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, singing O Canada, no problem. Doing the Kin song, like I said, maybe somebody doesn't like that. Maybe they don't want to do it. Maybe they think it's, it's not their cup of tea, right? They're uncomfortable. So, you know what, if this person's a good guy and so on and so forth, do you really want to lose that member because of a song? Or do you want that person to come out and help you at events? But that's a club decision. I'm just here to guide.
What we're basically saying is your club just needs to decide if that's a hill that you really want to die on. It comes down to picking your battles. If you have someone who's a younger member and they have contacts within the community and can possibly bring several key members in, but he's kind of going, yeah, my buddies aren't going to want to have anything to do with that, then that becomes a topic of conversation in your club.
And that's the info that's needed, is where, when you know that that's the issue that's coming from it. So somebody comes out and that's their biggest issue, and then you never see them again. You don't know that that's their issue unless somebody has the capacity to do some follow-up work.
I mean,
Which ideally someone would be doing anyway. Like whoever invited them out to the meeting, if they say, yeah, I really don't want to come back, well, why?
We've
So-
got a member that might be coming back, and it was totally our good kin Matt that brought them out to a budget meeting of all meetings for their first meeting. And then we never saw them again for 6 months.
yeah. That's the other thing, presidents. I'm not going to tell you guys what to do. I'm just going to give you suggestions, and bringing new members to a meeting for the first time is not necessarily the right way to do that. I would highly suggest you bring them out to an
Social.
event, anything that you're doing, a fun night, St. Thomas does a steak night. Tell them to come on out to that, and you know what? Hey, get them to help you out. Once they're comfortable with you guys and you meet them, and the biggest issue that we're having right now in kin is we are not spending the time with the volunteers or that new person that's coming out. We try to, but it doesn't always happen. Got to take the time. But that's just my opinion. I'm not the membership director, so I'm going to stop on that note. But yes, we have to be a little bit more aware of what we're doing in our meetings when newer members are there. If they're uncomfortable, they're not coming.
So, and that's something as president, you do have some flexibility. Just because your club has always done something this way doesn't mean that you have to keep doing things that way. You want to look at your clubhouse rules. One, you want to make sure that your house rules are current. But if something isn't written down in the house rules, you are able to change it. You still need to follow kin rules of order and things like that. But you do have some flexibility. And if changing some things up to modernize your club, you can't necessarily change things, just think of it as evolution. It's baby steps. Depending on seasoned members that you have in your club, they may or may not be open to new ideas or doing things a little bit differently, or well, we've always done it this way. Well, let's do things a little bit differently because we haven't had anyone new come through the door in 5 years, and be able to start addressing some things like that. So you do have that ability to change the tone of things within your club at your meetings as the president.
I can speak from a bit of experience. The older members, and when I want to sit there, or older people, like I'm sitting there saying, like, 60, 65 plus, that maybe want to join your club because they're bored, they quit, they're retired. They are more open to your meetings. Anything lower than, when it gets down to, I would sit there and say anything lower than about 50, to grab somebody in new 50, they're not interested in a meeting until you get them through until you, like, until they get to
You-
know you.
You
until
can't
become a good
generalize,
project.
and you're talking about membership recruitment.
Yes, and I'm supposed to be talking about
Are-
a president. Yes. So anyway,
Yes. Are there any questions about the role of president specifically?
Well, I have a question. I'm just wondering how you guys handle your event planning throughout the year, more specifically to like the chairperson or committee. Is that something a lot of clubs will do at the beginning of the year? I'm asking because I found that last year and the year before, and it may have been due to COVID, was we'd have our meetings, we'd talk about an event coming up, we'd have all these great ideas, everybody was more than happy to talk about it, but then nobody was willing to step up and chair.
that can be, I've seen this before. It's like literally crickets in the room, and you really do need a chair. And I understand it is tough. Like, I guess how
What
Oh.
what I've seen is really successful, because your job as the president is to keep the meeting moving forward. So if there's this great conversation and everything, and now it makes a difference if you have all of your members there. If you have a number of members who aren't there, then you need some flexibility, but basically you can say, okay, this is a great idea. Who's going to chair it?
Mhm.
And okay, we'll reach out to the members who aren't here. But if we don't have someone step up to take on the role of chair within the next 2 days, we're not discussing this anymore. We're not talking about it anymore tonight. If no one here is going to chair the meeting or chair the project, we're not going to discuss the project.
Okay.
And as the president, your job is to keep the meeting moving forward, and getting stuck in a rut, talking about something that nobody's going to take action on. Your job is to move things forward and not chair it yourself. The president should never be chairing a project. But if someone else isn't stepping forward, then the project doesn't happen, and you move on to the next item on your agenda. And if someone wants to say, well, no, we should do this, are you going to chair it? And if they're not going to chair it, you're done.
the nice
And
thing
so-
is, the
And you're
nice thing is
allowed to be a hard nose on it.
you
Thank
the
you.
other thing is too, you can always add a co-chair. Like if it's crickets and only nobody wants to do it, you know what, maybe we'll do it in pair. Sometimes that
Yeah.
might entice it, that it's not all on one person.
Yeah. Yeah, we've done that before where I changed it to be a committee and then got more people willing to do it.
Mhm.
And you say president should never chair a project?
Shouldn't, but you know what, it all depends on the size of the club.
And the size
So-
of the project. If it's
Mhm.
your club's biggest fundraiser, no, absolutely not. The president should not be chairing your largest fundraiser. Like in your case, Deanna, you as the president should not be chairing the bond spiel.
Yeah, I did last year.
Yeah,
Or not last year.
the
Pre-COVID.
last time. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
So
thank you.
And it also depends, well, yeah, like a different circumstance in the London Club. It's the same 4 people that have done the Sugar Bush committee for a long time. And they've been rotating to president, and you know what, they just stay on because they know what they're doing, right? It's easier just to keep it that way than trying to train somebody else new. But I think that's a little different exception. What works good in your clubs? Anyone? What works good in your club?
Any plans for a power of the gavel session for club presidents? Is that something we're going to be touching on at CLS, or?
I don't think so. No, that's not in the books this year. Anyone else? So anybody want to share a story, like what worked really well in their club, like a certain president that made it just amazing? You don't have to mention names. Good King Karen.
I just want to share an example. It wasn't a club that I was in, but it's a club that I visited as deputy governor. I'll name names to give them credit for. It's the Tilsonburg Canads. At their first meeting of the year, the president came in with a sheet of Bristol board done up in a chart. And all of the rows were all of their regular projects, the projects that they did every year without fail. Like these were the traditional projects that they always did. And so that was the first column. The second column had the name filled in of the person who had chaired that project the previous year. And then the third column was blank. And she went through and got a brand new chairperson for every project, but the person who had chaired it the previous year had to be on the committee and mentor the new chair. They also have a project binder. So she had all the binders with all of the information, like all the project reports, the receipts, the planning, all of the notes from previous years. And so when she got a new chairperson, they walked out that night with the project binder. And that just seemed like such a great way to plan the year. So you're not sitting there in January going, oh, hey, we always do something for Family Day. What are we going to do this year? Because the person who was going to be chairing National Day of Kindness had already been decided on at the first meeting of the year. So it was just a way to get some of the dates into the events set aside in the year. You've got your chair people and it's in the minutes, and it was just really clean the way it was handled. And yeah, it just impressed me so much to see that level of planning and organization going forward. So I always share that as a way to handle things when you're starting out the year. Sean.
So I'll name names on this one. Hank Vanderlinde, the late great Hank Vanderlinde, president of St. Thomas Kinsman Club that almost wasn't. He was elected president and was shortly thereafter diagnosed with cancer, and called a meeting between Matt Sharp, the past president, and myself, the vice president, to tender his resignation as president. And we talked him out of it, that, you know, we've got his back, and you know, if you feel that you can do it, we'll help you. And it turned out he was arguably the best president that this club has ever had. And he also took our encouragement that if you need to lean on people, lean on them. So you don't have to do it all yourself. Don't get overwhelmed. Don't delegate, and get your executive and know who you can lean on when you need to.
Good, Ken Derek.
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to go back to the background checks there.
Oh, right.
So how current do those background checks have to be? Because I know myself and Jill, we got ours last year, and it looks like we need them again this year.
Okay. So Derek, when you got them last year, was that through, like, did you give the police record check to Kim Canada?
Yeah, I did. Or yeah, we both did.
You should be good.
Okay.
It's good for a period of 3 years.
Nice.
And but you do have to do your declaration. So you do have to sign into ICANN if you haven't done that yet.
Yeah, it's already done for both of us.
Perfect. Then as far as I'm concerned, Derek, you should be good to go, bud.
Okay. No, that's great. Thanks a lot.
Hey, no worries. That's what we're here for. Okay, don't leave yet if there's no other questions, because there's one thing I want to do.
Yeah. One thing that I do want to emphasize is you are going, as president, you will be receiving information from your deputy governor. We have several different methods of communication that we'll be utilizing this year. And there are some things that we're asking your deputy governor for, and they'll be reaching out to you for information. We're expecting them to give us reports on how everyone's doing. So when your deputy governor reaches out for information, please respond promptly. because this is something they're not bugging you just for the heck of it. They're looking for information because we've asked them for information. So please make sure that when your deputy governor reaches out with a question, that you do respond to them in a timely manner. Information has to flow, but it also has to flow both ways.
The other thing, there's two more things before I let you go. And the one is your email addresses, and your deputy governor will be contacting you guys if you're the president about that, is have the same email address year after year. Do a generic email address. So, Walkerton Knetz at kincanada.ca or at gmail.ca, and keep it, just forward it on to the next person or anything. Just keep the email the same. It's so much easier for the district and people and national to get a hold of the clubs. You can sit, and then there's no, oh, I didn't get that information. No, yeah, you did. It's sent to your Gmail account. Oh, who's it? Ken?
That's a wonderful idea there, but there's one big problem. If nobody watches that email address, it's useless. We have that in our club, and you would pass it on, but the new president still doesn't watch it. I understand why you're going with it, and I agree with you, but there's a big problem in that disconnect where people aren't watching those emails.
Right.
Well, what I always do, Ken.
There's too many emails. Like right now, I have 5 different email addresses that I need to watch, and it is a pain in the butt.
Yes, and
Yeah.
it can be.
There are ways to handle that. What I've done, I'm in a similar situation because I do have client email addresses as well as my own, as well as my kin one. So one of the ways I handle that is Microsoft Outlook. But the other thing that I do is I have 3 of my email addresses automatically forwarded. So if you were to email me using my Kin Canada address, which is kcoots@kincanada.ca, that automatically shows up, gets forwarded to my personal Kin email address. So it's still available. So you can have meafordkinsman@gmail.com, and Gmail does automatic forwarding, but it stays in the Gmail account. So if somebody logs in and that's how they want to check it, that's fine. But email should be going to your secretary because it's correspondence. So you just set up automatic forwarding on your Gmail account that it goes to the secretary's personal email that they're checking every day anyway. And then next year, when you have a new secretary, change the forwarding so it goes to their email address. But if you log in to meafordkinsman@gmail.com, all of the emails are still there as a record.
So the other thing is, one last thing. Is there any last questions? If everyone would go down to the bottom and turn your screen on, just turn your video so we can see everyone's pearly little whites. And I would love to take a picture and put this on the District 1 Facebook page, if that's okay.
It's not mandatory, but it'd be
It's not
My
mandatory.
video's not coming on. My video won't.
There
come
we
on.
go. All right. So everyone give a big wave. And click. There we go. Awesome. Cool. All right. Look for your pretty pearly whites on the District 1 web or on the District 1 Facebook page. All right, guys. Thanks you so much for being here. There's quite a few more to go. And if, of course, you can always reach out to your deputy governor, and you can always reach out to us and Sean and Carol if you guys need anything. So thank you very much for coming. Have a good night. Hopefully we'll see you guys at convention.
Thank you, Dutch.
Okay, bye guys.